Humans often do things that seem right in the moment, but actually end up being a medical disaster. Let's get started. Number 10. Doctors treated infections with maggots. The idea sounds like neglect, not treatment. Leaving wounds exposed to insects feels like the opposite of medicine. But it was done deliberately. Maggot therapy involves placing live, sterile fly larvae into a wound. These larvae consume dead tissue while leaving healthy tissue intact. As they feed, they also secrete substances that help disinfect the area. This is not folklore. It was used in military medicine, particularly during times when antibiotics were unavailable or ineffective. Surgeons noticed that soldiers whose wounds became infested with certain types of maggots often healed better than expected. The process was controlled. Only specific species were used, and they were sterilized before application. The goal was not to let a wound decay, but to clean it in a way that tools at the time could not. The reason it worked comes down to biology. The larvae preferentially digest necrotic tissue, which is exactly what surgeons try to remove. They also reduce bacterial load. It sounds crude, but in some cases, it was more effective than early surgical methods. As much as it pains us to imagine maggots being purposely placed in our body, it did work. And compared to what came next, it almost seems reasonable. Number 9. Malaria was used to treat syphilis. At one point, doctors intentionally infected patients with malaria as a form of treatment. This was not accidental. It was a structured medical approach. Before antibiotics, late-stage syphilis, particularly neurosyphilis, was almost always fatal. It affected the brain and nervous system, leading to severe cognitive decline. Doctors observed that high fevers sometimes improved symptoms in certain patients. This led to an idea. If fever could slow the disease, maybe inducing it could help. Patients were deliberately infected with malaria, which causes recurring high fevers. After several cycles, they were then treated for the malaria itself. This method, known as malariotherapy, was developed in the early 20th century and was widely adopted. It even earned its creator a Nobel Prize. The reasoning was simple. The bacteria that cause syphilis are sensitive to heat. Repeated fevers could weaken or kill them. It did not always work, and it carried obvious risks. Some patients died from the malaria instead. But for a period of time, it was one of the few options available. And, as strange as it sounds, the next treatment is even harder to justify. Number 8. Lobotomies were used to treat mental illness.
What did he say?
Removing or damaging parts of the brain was once considered a valid psychiatric treatment. The lobotomy involved severing connections in the brain's frontal lobes. The goal was to reduce symptoms of severe mental illness, including depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia. The procedure varied, but one common method involved inserting a tool through the eye socket and moving it to disrupt neural pathways. This was not a rare practice. Tens of thousands of lobotomies were performed, particularly in the United States and Europe during the mid-20th century. The idea behind it was based on early theories about brain function. Doctors believed that certain mental disorders were caused by overactive or misfiring connections. By disrupting those connections, they hoped to stabilize behavior. In some cases, patients did become calmer, but the cost was often severe cognitive and emotional damage. The procedure fell out of favor as better treatments emerged and as the long-term effects became clear. At the time, it was seen as progress, but compared to the next approach, even this begins to make a certain kind of sense. Number 7. People were treated by bleeding. For centuries, one of the most common medical treatments was bloodletting. Doctors would intentionally remove blood from a patient, often using leeches or cutting veins. This practice was based on the theory of bodily humors, the idea that health depended on the balance of fluids like blood, phlegm, and bile. If someone was sick, it was assumed that one of these elements was out of balance. Removing blood was thought to restore equilibrium. The process was straightforward. A physician would determine how much blood to remove based on the condition, then perform the procedure using available tools. In reality, it often weakened patients further. But there were rare cases where it may have had some benefit. Certain conditions, like high blood pressure or iron overload, can improve with blood removal. At the time, however, it was applied broadly, without understanding when it might help and when it would harm. It persisted for centuries. And while it seems misguided, the next treatment involves something even less intuitive. Number 6. Tapeworms were used for weight loss. At one point, people intentionally ingested tapeworms to lose weight. The idea was simple. A parasitic worm living in the digestive system would consume some of the calories from food, leading to reduced weight gain. This was not widely regulated, but there are documented cases and advertisements suggesting that it was marketed as a solution. The process involved ingesting cysts or eggs, which would then develop into worms inside the body. In theory, it sounds like a shortcut. In reality, the results were unpredictable. Some people experienced weight loss, but others developed serious complications, including nutrient deficiencies and intestinal blockages. The underlying idea reflects a misunderstanding of metabolism. The body does not simply lose weight because something else consumes calories. The interaction is more complex and often harmful. It is difficult to determine how widespread this practice was, but it was real enough to be recorded and discussed. And compared to what comes next, it almost seems like a minor miscalculation. Number 5. Radium was marketed as a health supplement. Radioactive substances were once sold as beneficial to health. Radium, in particular, was added to tonics, cosmetics, and even drinking water. Products claimed to increase energy, improve vitality, and cure various ailments. This was not fringe marketing. It was part of a broader belief that radiation, newly discovered at the time, had stimulating or healing properties. The process was straightforward. Consumers would ingest or apply products containing small amounts of radioactive material. The effects were not immediately obvious, which made the claims harder to challenge. Over time, however, the damage became clear. Radiation exposure led to severe health issues, including bone decay and cancer. One well-documented case involved a man who consumed radium-infused water daily and later developed significant physical deterioration. The idea behind the treatment was based on incomplete understanding. Early observations showed that radiation could destroy certain cells, leading to the assumption that it could be beneficial in controlled amounts. The reality was far more dangerous. And the next treatment takes a similar misunderstanding in a different direction. Number 4. Mercury was used as a cure. Mercury, a toxic heavy metal, was once used in various medical treatments. It was applied to the skin, ingested, and even injected in attempts to treat diseases like syphilis. The reasoning was based on its observable effects. Mercury can cause salivation, sweating, and other physical responses. These were interpreted as signs that the body was expelling illness. The process often involved prolonged exposure, with patients undergoing repeated treatments. In some cases, symptoms of the disease did improve temporarily, but the toxicity of mercury caused severe side effects, including neurological damage. The phrase, "a night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury," reflects its use in treating syphilis and the consequences that followed. The treatment persisted because it occasionally appeared to work, even though the harm was significant. And while mercury is dangerous, the next treatment introduces a different kind of risk entirely. Doctors used fecal transplants to treat disease. Transferring material from one person's digestive system to another sounds like contamination, not treatment. But fecal microbiota transplantation is a real and increasingly studied medical procedure. The process involves taking stool from a healthy donor, processing it, and introducing it into the patient's digestive tract. The goal is to restore a balanced microbiome. This treatment has been particularly effective for certain infections, such as those caused by Clostridioides difficile, where standard antibiotics fail. The idea behind it is based on the role of gut bacteria in health. A disrupted microbiome can allow harmful organisms to dominate. Introducing a healthy community can re-establish balance. The concept seems unconventional, but the results have been significant in specific cases. It challenges assumptions about what constitutes medicine. And even this begins to seem straightforward. So, yeah, basically, humans just keep doing things in the name of health we really aren't sure should exist. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, and check out the other video on your screen now.